A client and I just bought and sold a property in under 3 weeks for a difference of around $70,000. In this video, I'm going to completely break down how we did it, including exact numbers for the purchase, financing, rehab, sale, and everything else involved. To begin, let's go over how we found the property. So I'm a real estate agent in the Richmond, Virginia area, and I had a client who I was helping look for an investment property. He began wanting to find a rental property, but after running numbers with his quoted interest rate, it was a big challenge to find anything that cash flowed his desired amount. So instead, he decided to switch strategies and work on finding a property to flip. Since we started working together, I had set him up on a daily MLS search to automatically email him any properties that fit his criteria. While keeping an eye on those properties, he also decided to market directly to potential sellers off of the MLS. My client did this by pulling a list of all the vacant properties in Henrico County and handwriting them letters. He would then send them to the recorded owner's mailing addresses, just saying that he's local and looking for distressed properties to purchase. Not long after, he got a call from a lady who was interested in selling. She said she owns the property with her aunt and they owe a large amount of unpaid taxes to the county, so it's getting ready to go up for auction. She told him they owed $20,000 in back taxes, and if he would buy it for a little bit more than that, they would sell it to him. When he told me that, I knew he had a good deal because the sellers had motivation and it could be a win-win scenario, since they wouldn't be getting any money from the county if it went to auction. So she told him that the house on the property likely needed to be taken down, but it was on 4 acres of land. When I looked at comps in the area, just land was selling for around $25,000 an acre. So regardless of what the house looked like, I knew he had a great opportunity. Here are some pictures of the property. His initial plan was to see if the house was salvageable and try to fix and flip it. After having some contractors look at it, they all said the same thing, that there's nothing they can do other than take the house down. At the same time, he reached out to some hard money lenders to see if they would fund this property. They said if his plan was to just tear down the house and possibly rebuild it, they would not be able to lend him anything, especially for such a small loan amount. One lender even said that he shouldn't buy this property if it's his first deal. Now, the whole time I was letting him know that he had a great deal and he should 100% buy it, regardless of the condition, just for the land value itself. So he thought about maybe taking the house down himself and just reselling the land, but he knew that would cost him more money that he didn't entirely feel comfortable spending on top of the purchase price. So combining the news he got from the contractors and lenders with already being tight on cash, he seemed like he wanted to walk away from this property. And he was a newer investor, so all of this is very understandable, but from the beginning, I was letting him know that he could just buy and resell this the way it is for around $100,000. I even told him that if he no longer wanted to pursue this property, I would try to buy it myself and do exactly that. Not worry about taking down the house or anything, just resell the land. So he asked if I would like to partner with him and go in 50-50. That way he would feel more comfortable and only have to spend half the money. I said absolutely, but only under the condition that as soon as we buy it, we resell it. I did not want to get tied up trying to take the house down or even trying to subdivide the land. I knew the way it was, we could sell it for $100,000. And in my opinion, in this situation, we had an obvious gain, so I thought it would be smart to lock it in before something changes. He agreed, so we decided to split the costs and also split any future proceeds 50-50. But at the time, we still needed to get the property under contract with the sellers, which by no means was easy. So as I said before, the lady who had originally called owned the property with her aunt. The aunt was an older lady and was out of state. When talking to them both over the phone, since the back taxes were a little under $20,000, we all agreed to a purchase price of $22,000 to cover their closing costs and allow them to walk away with a little bit of money on top of that. They also gave us the contact to the tax collections agent at the county that was responsible for this property. The collections agent said we were good to buy the property as long as we could close before 11 a.m. on the 31st of this month, or the county would take ownership. And at the time, it was around the beginning of that month. So if we could get it under contract, we only really needed like 10 days to close since we were buying it in cash. But we ended up having a ton of problems getting them to sign the contracts because neither of them had emails. So we tried to fax it, but also had problems with that, and we ended up just having to mail them the purchase agreements. Once they finally received them, the aunt was no longer happy with $22,000 and wanted to change the purchase price to $28,000. We ended up agreeing to that fairly quickly because we knew we just needed to keep this thing moving to be able to close before the 31st. So after all of that, we received the signed contracts and submitted them to our title company, letting them know the urgent situation. Once the title company finished doing their title work and communicating what they needed from us and the sellers, we were good to close with still 2 weeks until the 31st. But when all that was left to do was just sign the closing documents, the sellers went completely silent. not answering any calls from me, my partner, or the title company. The whole time they had been communicating fine with the title company before this. The one that was local even scheduled a time to come in and sign her closing documents, but never showed up. Almost a week goes by hearing absolutely nothing from them. So my client and I are not feeling very good about this deal at all anymore, because even if they started cooperating again, we didn't have that much time left. I think at this point there was only like 8 business days left until the 31st. Also, during the same time that they weren't talking to us, we find out that the property's been up for auction for like 2 weeks with people placing bids on it the entire time. But that ended up not being a big deal because after talking to the county, they said the auction is live now, but it doesn't close until 11 a.m. on the 31st. So if we can buy it and pay off the taxes before then, the auction will get canceled. So eventually, the way we got them to talk to us and go through with everything was our closing attorney had been sending emails and voicemails shortly after they stopped responding, saying you guys are under a legally binding contract to sell this property. If you continue to ignore us, you could potentially be sued for breach of contract. Now, since they do not have an email, the attorney sent this to a family member's email that the sellers had given him. I knew there was no way they were checking that, so I copied and pasted this and sent it as a text message to them. After seeing this, they reached out to us and we were able to talk everything out and ended up getting the sale closed on the 24th of the month. So that is the story of how we found the property off market. But now I want to show y'all the exact numbers involved in the purchase, and then later the same thing with the sale side numbers. And of course, this is in no way meant to come across as bragging. I'm hoping this is coming across helpful for you guys to realize how you can find real life deals and what the numbers can look like in the current market. I would love to make this a repeating series of videos of how I bought properties and all the numbers involved. That way you guys can learn from my successes and failures along with me. And hopefully this doesn't happen, but if in some way I lose $70,000 on a deal, I will break down the story and the numbers the exact same way I'm doing in this video where we made $70,000. But before this deal, I didn't really plan on buying a flip or even partnering with anyone. I mostly focus on buy and hold properties as a sole owner. So the next video like this will most likely be me breaking down how I bought and rented a property instead of a flip, but who knows? Anyways, here are the numbers overview of when we bought the property. The purchase price was $28,000. We paid cash and had a little bit over $3,000 in closing costs. Here's a breakdown from the settlement statement for all the closing costs. The $700 in commission was paid from my client to Keller Williams. My assumptions when we bought this property was to not spend anything on a rehab, around $1,000 for taxes and liability insurance, have around $5,000 in closing costs for the sale, including the buyer's agent commission, and then expecting to sell it for $100,000 in around a month from when we bought it. Now, after we closed on the property, I went and listed it for sale that same day for $100,000. I set an offer deadline for 5 days. Once the deadline came, we had received multiple offers, so I then gave everyone 24 hours to improve their original offer if they would like to. We ended up accepting a cash offer for $102,000 with the buyers also covering their own agent's commission. And here are the complete sale side numbers. So we listed it for $100,000, accepted an offer at $102,000, and that's what it ended up closing at. Our sales side expenses were no rehab. We got a good deal on the insurance at only about $200 for taxes and insurance. Part of the reason for that was because we got rid of it so fast, being only 20 days from the purchase closing to the sale closing. Actually, the day before closing, the buyer told us that they're gonna have to delay because the county hadn't even recorded that the back taxes had been paid by the previous owner. So the Liz pendants were still active. But they ended up updating the records the next morning, so we were able to go in as planned. So then the closing costs were about $1,000. The reason I thought this would be more is because I thought we were going to pay out 3% for the buyer's agent, but they ended up covering that themselves. Here's the breakdown of the sale side closing costs from the title company. It's kind of hard to see, but there were no commissions paid by us. I didn't charge anything since I was part owner. So the final numbers are a sales price of $102,000. All-in costs with purchase price and expenses were $32,400. Leaving us with a profit of $69,600. Not too bad at all. Now, the reason I put $70,500 in the title is because here I counted the commission when we bought it as an expense for us, but that was really just money going from my partner to me. So now if you want to get in on deals like this in Henrico County or anywhere in the Central Virginia area, all my contact information will be in the description for me to help you.